All right, hello everybody. Welcome to this first live stream of the Blender workshop Building Character, the fall 2015 run of it. My name is Kent Trammell. I'm your instructor, and Joe Chico is the moderator and my overall right-hand man for the next 6 weeks. So I want to thank you very much for joining in the workshop. I've been looking forward to this format for a while now, just being able to dive in, get hands-on with you guys, and hopefully I think it's a better format to teach some of the more advanced topics. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Bear with me. I think this is the second live stream I've ever done, and they definitely make me a little bit nervous, but I'm still excited about it. And it also means that I think I'm trying to learn the best format for teaching in this live stream. And so right now I have planned basically three things that I want to do with the live streams. First, critique your work that at this point in the schedule, it'll be the week one is kind of an exception, but week 2 through 6, this will be sort of midweek, and where you can kind of get a midterm review for the homework that you're submitting and that you're working on. And so that's just meant to be very, very respectful. It's not meant to be demeaning or embarrassing by any means. So I'm going to do my best just so everyone can kind of learn from suggestions for improvement. And so I think that will be really a very key point of the live stream. And then also question and answer. You're able to ask questions at any point in the chat, the GoToMeeting chat. So please, spout off any questions that you have as we go. Also, I offer the ability to ask questions, I guess, preemptively. So, if it involves sort of like if I can answer by a demonstration or something like that, I can have some time to prepare. And then finally, a demonstration. I will always want to have that in my back pocket. But, I don't just want to. The first live stream I ever did, I was telling Joe earlier, was very much me. Like I planned it out the same way I plan out like a recording, a pre-recorded tutorial. And so I was just motoring through this curriculum and like absolutely no interaction between the students. I would stop and be like, "Are you guys following me?" And it was like dead silence. So I don't want that to be the case here, where I'm just like teaching you without the interaction, because I can just record a tutorial in that case. And so I basically, the demonstration, I want to just be like a vehicle for you to watch what I'm doing and then ask your questions so that you can, be helped very, specifically to what you want to know. All right, yeah, so that's the format. Also, this is about 2 hours long. Joe said that in Tim's workshop, they typically go for about an hour and then take like a 10-minute break to get some water, use the bathroom or whatever. And then we'll finish up that second hour. And Joe, am I missing anything, or is that a pretty good introduction?
Yeah, no, that was solid. And just for everyone's knowledge, I know I said it earlier in the chat, but when you join in, the reason why you're muted is so that way no noise or static will come over Kent, so that way we can hear him clearly. And I'd also like to know your guys' feedback on the stream as far as Kent's screen. I want to know if it's clear what he's doing, and if it is, if it's not, let us know as well.
Absolutely, good call. Yeah, great. Okay, so I actually do have some homework assignments for this week. It's a short. Oh gosh, that yikes. Oh, someone must have joined. Okay. So I do have some submissions that I was kind of surprised to get, being only like a day and a half into the workshop. Let's see, that was unclear. Let's see. Are you guys still able to hear me? I got some comments that something was unclear. Okay. So yeah, I've got about 4 submissions that I guess some of you guys are really excited and straight jumped on that. So awesome for you guys, that I'll open up. And this week's a little bit different from following weeks in that the quality is not the main concern. I'm just really, the purpose of this week is to get used to Blender's tools in case you haven't used them before, or if you do know how to use them and you haven't in a while, just get really, really warm with the sculpting format in Blender, so that next week when we start building the pieces of our actual character, we can hit the ground running. And so I'm going to open up those, and then also have a couple questions that I want to answer as well. So let's jump over to Blender, and I'm going to open, let's see here. Yeah, so I'm going to open up Felipe, his files first. And so this is perfect. This is exactly what I hope to see from you guys. Um, it's not really focusing on quality, just again, just getting comfortable with the tools. And so I don't want to offer, in this case, any unwarranted critiques as far as quality. But this kind of thing is perfect. If I was to critique it, maybe we talk about anatomy, but I don't really. Wasn't the assignment, so I don't really want to do that in this case. But that's perfect, Felipe. He did say that they aren't quite polished, and he's going to do some more work on it. So thank you for submitting that. And you also had another one. Let's see, what was that one? Oh yeah, the jalapeno. This one I really don't even see anything to critique. It looks like a jalapeno, and very believable, well formed, and yeah, another awesome submission for this week. And then we also have one from, let's see here. Yeah, the Santa Bell from Ryan. I was actually very impressed with this, so much to the point that when I first opened it up, I kind of wondered if it was a 3D scan, because the more I looked at it, I was like, man, this thing looks exactly like the reference. And I've definitely handled some of these. Just Philip. Oh, my fault. I mispronounced that. Thank you. So I will try and get that right from now on. My fault. So let's see. Yeah. So I think that this sculpture is spot on, like that kind of die cast metal, where the features are kind of washed out, which is exactly my experience with these type of ornaments. So really nice job, Ryan. I'm curious if you can comment in the chat. Did you sculpt these holly leaves one by one? Because they look different enough from each other to maybe they're not. Oh my gosh, you did. I do not envy that process, but great job. Yikes. This is really good. I mean, I wouldn't say anything negative about this in terms of the quality. Even when let's see, I imagine the matte cap oh yeah. I mean, that's great. Really, really solid work. Cool. So literally nothing to say about that one. And then the last one I want to open is Daniel's Happy Pear. So he even went to the point of having a render set up for it. So, man, you're really already putting some good time into the homework assignments, which is awesome. So every single one of these submissions so far is perfect. It's exactly what I was looking for with the homework assignment. It's clear that you guys are working with the tools well, and you're comfortable enough to create something of this quality. So that's awesome. With this one in particular, I wanted to kind of let's bookend what this week is about, and then I'm going to give you like an idea of where I want to go with the critiques in subsequent weeks. And that's really trying to hit on the character of like injecting character, sort of character with a capital C, so to speak. The title of the workshop, Building Character, I was trying to be, I guess, clever and have double meaning. Of course, we're building character models, but then also character, like, I don't know if this is right grammatically, but like the adjective character, people, the stuff that's like personality, it's the story that makes up the person. And so with this particular example, really you're already going above and beyond by putting personality. You're not just creating an object, one for one. This is a pair that you've put a personality into, which is really great. And so since you did that, I kind of thought, like, how could we take this further and further fulfill the character nature of this particular sculpture? And then what it made me want to point to is, let's see, it's this guy, I can't remember his name, Pumpkin Sculptures. Let's Google that. Yeah, it's this guy, Villafane Studios. So if we look up his pumpkin sculptures, Villafane. Yeah, I think this is pretty relevant to inspire you for improvement upon the character. Now, again, I'm not saying that you need to do this for for this particular week, but just for the sake of how critiques will look in the future, it's going to be less about tools and more about the character. And so if we look back at the sculpture, it's very symmetrical, which is necessary for creating a sculpture just efficiency wise. If it's symmetrical, you might as well get the second half for free. And so, we have a very symmetrical smile and pretty much everything except, once we get up here to the stem, you did a great job with the asymmetry there. But to kind of inject this thing that I'm going to take from one of you guys, and I think it might have been Mike, but in one of the introductory posts, one of you guys said that like Blender has been very utilitarian for you up to this point, and you're missing this, the work is missing this kind of spark. And that really, I relate a lot to that because the first several years of my my CG education and work that I created lacked that spark as well. And so I'm going to be hitting on that a lot here. And since you have the face in the pair, like you're already implying that there's the spark, but the symmetry in general, like symmetry with characters kind of kills the believability of it and the life, because, in reality, how often are people actually doing symmetrical, whether it's expressions of the face or symmetrical poses? It just doesn't happen very often. And so if we look back at these pumpkin sculptures, even though this one is very symmetrical overall, he still offsets the eyes, kind of gives him a target to look at. The mouth is actually quite symmetrical, but there does seem to be a little bit of lopsidedness to the smile, and it's just ever so slightly enough to, I don't know, kind of give this thing a story, basically, like give it that spark of life that could definitely be applied to this sculpture here. If that was something you want to do. Once we start building the actual characters, this is going to be what I encourage a lot. And so really, I just wanted to use this sculpture to as a jumping off point, give you an example of what it'll be like in the future. But for this week, this is perfect. This is exactly what I was looking for. So thank you guys for submitting your work already. Yeah, just excellent job there. It's very encouraging to me when I kind of see people eager, if you're eager to join in and learn and do the work, that just that gets me excited. Just from talking to you guys in the last couple of weeks, it seems very clear that we share the passion of character art, and that passion is very contagious. So I think we're going to have an awesome 6 weeks ahead of us. I'm just very, very excited about it. So a couple questions now that I got asked in the forum thread. Let's see, where is that? Questions. Here we go. Okay, so the first one is from Kaj. I hope I'm pronouncing that one. And so he's asking, when planning a completely new character, do you draw it on a concept first, like a 2D template, or just start sculpting away? Or do you gather different reference pics from the items you're going to put into the character and then start sculpting? So my approach to a new character depends on the situation, as you might imagine, and it's kind of involving generally some of each of these approaches. With a realistic character in particular, a 2D template, when I hear the word template, I think of like orthographic images and things that you need to put into the viewport to match very specifically. And realistic characters, in my opinion, don't need that. And so, like in this workshop, let's see, where are we at? Reference art. Yeah, so for this workshop, I did decide to draw my concept, my quote unquote unique original concept. And this was my best attempt. So I used to draw a lot when I was a kid. I have since, fallen off the wagon in favor of 3D creation. And so this literally took me like 2 days. So I'm not particularly gifted with the ability to concept characters in 2D. And when I say concept, I mean like create new ideas, new character aesthetics. I'm just not very good at that. I'm prone to recycling a lot of ideas. So even though I'm happy enough with this character, I was afraid that and I asked him, because I sent it over to him to finish rendering, and I said, I hope this doesn't look like a character you've seen a bunch of times, and he was very polite, but said, yeah, it does kind of look like that. So my gift is not conceptual design. But this is the best that I could kind of come up with, and it took way more effort than I really wanted to put into it. So all of that to say, concepting from scratch, that's not the typical way that I approach a new character. But I was able to give this to Tim, and he rendered out beautifully. And so when I'm creating a realistic character, all I really need is something like this, just a single image from like a perspective angle, maybe a pose, not too extreme of a pose, but obviously not a T pose. I really don't like T pose, and those kind of neutral. It just loses the life for me. So this was perfect. This is all I really need for realism. Because it is realism, I know that I can use photographs of people and photographs of things, like I did here. This is my probably preferred way to approach a character. If I'm starting a character from scratch and he's realistic in genre, then I just look for a ton of reference images to guide each piece of the character puzzle. And so that's very easy for me to do. Everybody knows how to Google. And so that's definitely what I prefer. The only one that I don't really, as far as your question went, where was that? As far as these just jumping in and sculpting right away, that is something that I maybe never do. I have done it before, but what inevitably happens, and this goes back to me being a kid, is I guess I think that a good artist doesn't need reference and they can just dive in and start to create. And that is just simply never the case in my experience. And, maybe I overestimate my memory, because that's really what it comes down to. I've seen plenty of warriors, plenty of pieces of armor, plenty of leather boots and gauntlets. But to actually create that in 3 dimensions realistically, I quickly realize how little I remember of those individual pieces. And so when I do start this way, it doesn't take maybe 10 or 15 minutes before I'm like banging my head into the ground because I can't get the desired shape. So I find some reference and then immediately it starts clicking. So yeah, that's one way that I don't really recommend. Maybe there are some awesome artists that have a phenomenal photographic memory that don't need reference, but I don't know. I'm skeptical that person exists maybe. Anyway, so I hope that answers your question about starting a character completely new. Next question is from Daniel. Maybe you can explain how you present your work in progress sculptures to others. My workflow is HDRI, 3-point lighting, and a ground plane, a basic shader for the whole sculpture. Okay, so he actually, I think he's the one with the file. Oh yeah. So this is his, I think, Daniel. And so this is the setup that I believe he's talking about. And this is definitely how I approach kind of final models and models that I don't plan on changing, because like rendering to me is an investment that, if I'm going to change the model a lot, I don't really want to, sorry, I was reading the comments. If I'm changing the model, I don't want to have to go through the rendering process too many times, hopefully just once. And so what I will do is create like a rendering scene, similar to this, with a actually very similar to this, ground plane, basic shader, same lighting setup that I can import a character model and then, scale to the right size and parent to an empty that's already spinning in a turntable fashion. And so like I spend a lot of time, or significant amount of time, on that one render setup, and then I can just import models and they'll always look good. Examples of this is I'm slowly starting to gather some material for a future demo reel. I really wanted to have more demo reels consistently, but oh, bummer. Cody's audio is pretty distorted. Is anyone else having that problem? Maybe I'm speaking too fast? Okay. The J goes silent, I think he said.
Oh, it's just Kai.
Ka. Okay. Ka? Is that right?
Ka.
Okay. Shoot. I hope that's right. Okay. So it might just be that one guy. I'm sorry, Cody. That's okay. All right. So I'm trying to build up material for a future demo reel, and involved in that is models that I've built. And when the models don't have textures and it's just like a gray model, that's when I like to employ this particular setup, similar to Daniel's. And so I'll show you an example of what mine is like. So this is a character I built for the Freebirds movie, and I kind of borrowed the model, when I left the company, and so posed it myself. And this I can, just plop the character into, apply this yellow material, and then I can just recycle this for multiple models. And I've done this for several models on this particular show. And so, yeah, this is what I do with final models. But your question actually involves, it says specifically work in progress sculptures. That I don't particularly like to get into the rendering setup, because what I said earlier, I don't want to repeat that too many times because it's just time consuming. And so if I'm showing a work in progress model, I'll open a file here. I actually do like to use the Blender viewport with things like ambient occlusion, screen space ambient occlusion, and depth of field, and just general OpenGL settings. We can get a very not realistic, but a beautiful result. Certainly one that's worthy to show to people, and better than just a typical 3D view perspective. And so like this is basically almost the final version of the character. And so I like to apply some, I don't have the character art open, but anyway, this color scheme, roughly matches the character art that we got from Tim. And so I like to do this just because it's quick and it's easy, and it just takes the character a little bit closer to the final look. And so very simple, just diffuse, cycles materials. Something to keep in mind about the cycles material though is viewport color and the diffuse color are not the same. I kind of wish they were. Hopefully maybe that will be an improvement that is added down the road. But if you change your color in the diffuse, it won't necessarily change the viewport color. Anyway, just a catch of the cycles materials. And so once I add those materials, right now I've got Simplify enabled for the sake of viewport efficiency. So if I disable that and we go all the way up to the highest resolution, which is, I'm curious how many millions of polygons there are at this point. Wow, 22 million, almost 22.5 million polygons. And this is Blender 2.76. And so it's actually a good response, a viewport response. I'm pretty impressed with that. So once I've up-resed everything, I do like to enable ambient occlusion, which amazingly is like almost no slowdown. And I appreciate that, Ryan. Hopefully you'll be doing this by the end of the course. I'm definitely going to teach it. And so once we have the ambient occlusion on there, that's just an extra nice step that helps for the contact shadows. So it's kind of a no-brainer, definitely a cool effect. The only negative about the ambient occlusion is that it nullifies, or mostly nullifies, the anti-aliasing around the edges. So if we open up my user preferences, this is also something I like to enable for presenting a work in progress model, is the window draw method, multi-sample up to, I use 8, you can go up to 16. And if we turn ambient occlusion off, you can see that that's very smooth. How much of the character did you sculpt, not counting the retopo? So let me see if I understand your model. Let's see. I sculpted. Let's see. I think I understand your question. The only thing I did not sculpt from. Oh, wait a minute. How much? Sorry, I'm trying to answer D. Brown's question, but hey, Joe, if you can keep track of that and I'll answer it. How much did you do? What?
Could you not hear me?
Oh no. Have you been talking?
Oh yeah, I asked you D. Brown's question.
Wow, I'm sorry. Maybe I was just like in the zone and didn't hear. Sorry about that. So, how much did you model? And instead of sculpting, I think is what you mean. And that, okay, so surprisingly little. Okay, that is what he's mean. The only things I did not sculpt are these little buckles, and I don't think I did sculpt on the belt. Um, I think just the buckles are the only thing I did not sculpt at all. Um, yeah. So to me, like, I mean, I tackle everything with sculpture because you can take advantage of the VBO system, which allows you to, go into the millions of polygons, and it just really adds that high frequency fidelity to each piece, which I think is really the only way to get all the way to, kind of photorealism. So I hope that answers your question. But oh no, I didn't sculpt the chains. That was another thing I did not sculpt. So basically just very simple shapes that wouldn't make any sense to sculpt. Um, okay, yeah. So what was that? Okay, back to the how I present this work in progress as an image. And so when we enable ambient occlusion, we've got our resolutions at the highest. Right. So ambient occlusion nullifies the anti-aliasing in the viewport, which is a bummer. So what I do instead is rendering OpenGL. Let's turn off or let's turn on only render so we get rid of the cursor. And so, we can temporarily set up our viewport like this. And yeah, in our render settings, since OpenGL is extremely fast, let's just bump this up the percentage, and it's hard to click right in the middle with a pin. Let's go up to like 300%, which really doesn't affect the render time hardly at all. And so yeah, just like that, a couple seconds, and we've got an enormous render of this. So since it is so big, I can take it into Photoshop, scale it down, to whatever resolution I actually want to present it to people. And the scaling should take care of the anti-aliasing issue. And so that's the only really, catch about this workflow. I would need to adjust definitely the render resolution. But yeah, so that's how I typically like to present a work in progress sculpture. And then once the work in progress stage is over, that's not where I wanted to go. Then I will set it up with the render, very similar to what you have, Daniel. So hope that is generally the answer to your question. The last one that we have is, do you see any downside to 3D scanning a base mesh for sculpting? No, not really. The only downside, depending on where you're at as far as your skill level, if you've never sculpted a human body, and you opt to use 3D scanned bodies, you're going to be missing out on. Let's see, you didn't know. Joe, are you talking at all, and I'm still not hearing you, or no?
Yeah, I'm just I don't want to interrupt you because you're in the middle of describing something, so I don't want to I
Uh,
don't want to just interrupt you when you're talking.
no, feel free to interrupt me. I just don't want to like literally ignore you in case that's what I'm doing. But okay, so I'll answer this question real quick, and if I've missed any in the chat, just let me know. Um, so yeah, the only downside I can see, depending on your skill level, is sculpting the human body is a very educational experience. I highly encourage it, especially if you want to be a character artist and focus your attention on characters, because you really kind of need to be an expert um, in the human body and additionally like creature bodies perhaps. But if you bypass that phase of learning how to sculpt it, then you're dependent on something that if someone didn't allow you to do that for some reason, like you'd be at a loss. So there's no downside. Like if I had 3D scan data, I wouldn't feel bad at all about starting there. But I've sculpted the human body several times and know the value that's behind that. But no, as far like technically, if that's what your question's about, the topology that comes from a 3D scan is really janky generally and messed up. And dynamic topology sculpting doesn't care about that. It'll just mow over that bad topology with its own topology. So there's no technical problems there whatsoever. Um, yeah, so that's okay. That's the end of the questions. Joe, have I missed any that I should go back and answer?
Uh, no, I think that was all of them.
Okay. All right, cool. Well then, I'm only a half hour in, and I guess that leaves the demonstration. I'll get another sip of water, and then we'll start there.
Oh, Ryan has a question.
Uh,
Uh, Ryan's question is the character model using multi-res or subsurface when normal maps break down? I only asked because the 22 million polycount.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Currently, my model at this stage is not using any normal maps. It's pure multi-resolution sculpting. So what you'll find out throughout the course of this workshop curriculum is, and if you've seen any other training, I don't know if I've actually done this. Maybe except for the, yeah, I did do it once, and it was the first tutorial I ever did, the realistic head. I employed the same, basically the same workflow there. So I sculpt the general form, and that's what we're going to cover in this course, with dynamic topology, and then once you have, I think I say like between maybe like 50 and 75% of the final form, and then once we get to that point, um, I choose to retopologize there for a couple reasons. Retopology, highly optimizes our mesh. First, for animation, if we want to take it there, but also because we can add a multi-resolution modifier, which is much more efficient with high polygon counts. And so we can add that on top of the retopology and go really high with the detail. As you can see here, I'm at, I must have told, no, I'm sorry, I told you guys wrong. It's 22.5 million triangles. That's a little over 11.5 million polygons. And so multi-res takes much more advantage of the VBO system, which if we look in our, if you're unfamiliar with that, I go over all this stuff in some of the pre-recorded content, but the VBO is right here. This stands for vertex buffer objects, and it is so clutch for sculpting at high resolutions, particularly with the multi-resolution modifier. And so that's why I choose halfway through the modeling process to retopologize, because that allows me to get to the higher levels of detail sculpting. If I just stuck with the dynamic topology, we're going to start to see some extreme slowdown in the viewport, and it's probably going to become unworkable. Just in my experience with dynamic topology, there's definitely a ceiling that's much lower than the multi-resolution sculpting. So what you're actually seeing here, I kind of got off track maybe a little bit, but so the model is using multi-res. Every single piece, except for maybe the buckles, is using multi-res and has additional detail sculpted on top of the retopologized mesh. And yeah, what's also cool about this is I don't know if any of you guys have used ZBrush, like the more industry standard method of character building is sculpt everything in ZBrush, retopologize it either in ZBrush or ReTopoGun, or no, it's called TopoGun, and then go into Maya, and you have to bake all your detail. The ceiling was raised in 2.6 if you're talking about the old. Oh, I wasn't even aware that there was a specific 1 million try restriction. I think even a couple versions ago, I was able, with the VBOs, I think I did a test and I think I tweeted about it. I got up to like 25 million polygons with the VBO system, and it was still like workable. It was a little bit slow, but it was still workable. So if they've even raised the ceiling in the latest version beyond that, that is just brilliant. Open subdiv, yeah, that's absolutely true. I haven't used that yet. Oh, okay. Well, then that's awesome too. The Dintopo ceiling, if you're Dennis is saying that's been raised as well. That's awesome. So when you're in the course, I think it's week 5. No, it's week 4. I give you the opportunity to choose if you want to just stick with dynamic topology sculpting, or if you want to pursue the retopology. So that is up to you. If you go to Blender Artist, there are a lot of people who are sculpting in the Dintopo tests forum or thread, and they're doing incredible work, and they're not bothering with retopology or anything like that. So I do give you that opportunity to decide. That's awesome news that they have raised that ceiling for Dintopo. Thanks for that information, Dennis. And let's see, I lost my train of thought, but that was worth it. Cool. I think that was the only question. Oh, no problem at all. I think that was the only question that I needed to answer. So maybe at this point we'll dive into the demonstration, I suppose. Let's just, I'm going to create a new Blender file. And what I want to do now is sculpt a candle, like a melted candle, the kind that appears. At least somebody wants to see the demo. Awesome. It's the kind of candles that you see in probably every Blizzard cinematic that there is. Blizzard, man, they're just so good. So that's kind of what I'm going to demonstrate. Again, I really want this to be a vehicle for you to ask questions. What tools am I using? Why do I make this choice? Whatever. So please ask to your heart's content. Just starting the new file, and I'm going to make a new window here. Oh, okay. I'm going to open up a new UI window, new panel or whatever, and switch that to the UV image editor, and we're going to open my reference for this. And here we go, candle, make sure, yeah. All right, so if you guys have watched week 1's content, the pre-recorded video lessons, then I'm just using the same approach that I already talked about, I think earlier in this live stream, about gathering a bunch of reference photos. This is going to be just a one-to-one kind of sculpture. I'm not going to Xerox it, so to speak. It's just going to be inspired by photos. I'm not going to put a face in it or anything like that. And so, just got a few reference images to guide me along. And I really love this one right here. This is the one I'm going to focus on the most. Just a lot of melted goodness going on. And so, yeah, I've got that. I usually just put this in my bottom right corner. So it's always there and I can reference it. And now to build a base mesh. So to start here, this one, is basically a cylindrical shape. And so that's how we'll start. Just get rid of my cube. And then I like to get rid of the camera and light, default light. I don't really know why. I've kind of always held a grudge against those things. I guess I like to open a scene and it be empty when something's already in there. I'm like, get out of here. I didn't create you. But anyway, so let's add a cylinder object. And I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to think about the fact that I'm going to use dynamic topology, and therefore I want to just help it along a little bit at the beginning to give it some better geometry. And man, now that I say that, that's probably less efficient now that when I rehearsed this. What I did was get rid of the Ngon. I'm just talking in circles. I'm gonna do that. So I'm going to get rid of the top and bottom humongous Ngon. The reason being is when I go to dynamic topology, make my stroke across that humongous Ngon, and I might, it might be a little bit harder to work with. So if I go ahead and create some uniform geometry, just very quickly, hit, let's see, spacebar, and already had it, grid fill. Just grid fill it real quick, top and bottom, and then maybe cut some edges this way. Whoops. Okay, yeah. Now I've got some even geometry that will be very easy for dynamic topology to do its thing. Create its own topology across the surface. I usually like to make things sit on top of the grid. That's just a personal preference. A little bit of a pet peeve when I see, I shouldn't say pet peeve, but when I see the grid like directly bisecting an object, it just it makes me anxious for some reason. So anyway, I move it on top of the grid, and then while I'm at it, let's just go ahead and, select, maybe it'll help if I turn my screencast keys on. Also, I should probably ask for you guys for like a consensus. When I was rehearsing with Joe, I know that the streaming was a little slow or a little laggy. So if I'm going too fast and it's kind of jumping, please let me know. I'll try and slow down. All right, so screencast keys enabled. Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. And I'm just selecting this top ring of vertices to Shift D, duplicate it, P, separate by selection, so that I have a new object that can serve as a base for the candle. Okay, so we're gonna just scale that out. E to extrude, a little bit of an edge there. E to extrude again, and we're just gonna put a slight lip and then scale in one more time. And this one I won't worry about sculpting, so I'll just model it, like a regular polygon object. and E to extrude that interior edge, and grid fill again, just for even topology. And because I'm maybe a little bit OCD, I like the grid to be oriented along the X and Y. So there we go. That's what I want. And then we'll finish the base by scaling it down. Let's see here. There we go, something like that. You to extrude, put that edge on there, put that start the hard edge, and then finally grid fill one more time.
Kai says, "Glad to know I'm not the only one that likes that with grid fill."
I knew that there had to be more than one to me, so that's definitely good to know. Grid fill again, and what do I have to do? I have to make it even. So let's see. Ooh. There we go. Awesome. All right, so the base is done. Maybe cut one more holding edge there, and at this point I can put a subdivision surface modifier on it, and we'll change it up to 2. Let's smooth out the shading. And now that's a base that I can model around all the drippiness of our candle. And so I might as well just get rid of the grid instead of trying to set things on top of it.
D Brown says, "Amen," but I use Control F menu to get to it.
Control F. All right, well, let's test that, D Brown. Let's see if that is better. Okay, let's, I'll duplicate this. And you said Control F. Grid fill. Okay, I mean, I respect that. I respect that. I think choosing maybe the 4th option could maybe slow me down. I'm just kidding. No, that's perfectly fine. Absolutely respect you there. Okay, so yes, now we're ready to start sculpting this guy. I'm going to jump into sculpt mode and dynamic topology, one of the coolest things ever to be invented. And I'm going to, let's see, set the detail size. I usually like to start at 10. I know that's not much different from 12. And let's see here. The general shape, as we look in our artwork, it kind of splays out at the bottom, and then this, I guess, where the collection of melted wax is. And so I can do that very quickly back in edit mode. Probably should have done this before I jumped into dynamic topology, which triangulates everything. Anyway, and we'll jump over to, or we'll enable proportional editing, and let's just scale this out. Switch back over to my mouse because it's easier to control. There we go. Just something simple to get that shape sort of started. And maybe scale everything using Shift-Z, kind of make it thinner. Look at me getting all specific. Okay. That's much easier to do in edit mode than it is. Do what?
Ryan Otero says, "Having OCD is the prerequisite to perfection."
Hey, amen with that. See, we're all like brothers in here. We know how to relate to one another. And this is going to be good. All right, so now I can go back to sculpt mode, enable dynamic topology, and just have a better base to start sculpting from. You know, I maybe made myself a liar. So I usually start at detail size of 10, but for this particular candle, there's a lot of detail that I need to think about with these, with the drips. And so the way that I want to approach that, I'm going to need a little bit more resolution, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to go down to 5 pixels for the detail size, and just start to rough in some of the larger crevices and ridges, I guess, along the cylinder. So we'll jump over to the inflate brush, one of my favorites, and yeah, we'll just start laying down some ridges, and I do not necessarily need symmetry enabled. So I'll disable that and maybe get to the whole thing. Depends on how much time we actually have. I feel like I'm going at light speed. I can't believe it's only been 40 minutes, but maybe we'll get to the whole thing, maybe not. I'll just focus mainly on one side perhaps. But so I'm just trying to be as varied as I can. I don't want this to be perfectly uniform, you know, go into the sculpture a certain amount, go out a certain amount, and just repeat that. I kind of want to keep the ridges, you know, a little bit asymmetrical, not uniform at all. And so, let's say we've done that a decent amount, whatever. So we've at least gotten it started. Maybe pull some of this out. I'm going to have to battle. The thing when you start with a smaller detail size is it tries to preserve, the polygon grid underneath that you started with. So that's a little weird. We might just, solve that with some general smoothing. So that, yeah, helps a little bit. That'll be taken care of as we go along. But also, we can't leave the top.
Dan has a question.
Dan, as a beginner, I have a lot of trouble managing the strength of the tools. Detail, strength, radius, and zoom level seem to overlap in controls. Yeah, one thing that I like to do is unify the strength settings, which, oh wow, so I thought that was enabled. Over here in the options tab, constant detail. Oh, good call. Okay, yeah, I'll go over that. I might as well talk about what Ryan suggested. So I like unified size and strength, just so that if I'm using inflate at a really high strength and then switch over to grab and there's hardly any strength, that kind of bothers me. And that's part of the inconsistency in my experience between brushes. So I would maybe suggest enabling that. Also, if the zooming bothers you, this is, I imagine, totally a preference and there isn't a wrong way to go about it. But like Ryan said, he uses the constant detail. And I might need a reminder as to which one this is. Constant. I think regardless of the zoom, it has the same detail size. So let's say 30%. Whoops, let's use inflate brush and test this out. Okay, so 30% is actually very broad. And then as I zoom in, it's still just as broad. So that's a great solution for how to deal with the zooming issue. Let's see, we got.
Ryan?
Yeah, let's see.
Ryan says percentage of total mesh size, and Cody says, do you have the brush detail option, or do you use the brush detail option?
Use the brush detail option. I'm not sure what he. Oh, do you mean the detail refine method, perhaps?
And then Philip,
I love brush.
do you ever use the brush detail mode for the detail size? Found the idea interesting, but never really had the strength to change my habit.
Let's see, it's the third option. So detail type method maybe is what he's talking about.
It's in the menu as constant detail. It's newer.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so I think he's talking about this right here, relative constant brush. Yeah, I actually, maybe it's just me, I got used to the old method, which is, crap, I don't even know what's the default. Okay, relative detail. That's the one that I stick with just because, it's out of the box. It's what I got used to. So I guess there's a lot of muscle memory driving how close I am to the sculpture and how that affects the detail. But the options are there. I highly encourage you to play with them so that you can find what's comfortable for you. And we talked about the constant detail. That's an excellent option for that. But I guess it's not my preferred method. Maybe it's just because I never try it. Sometimes I feel like an old man. If I have something that works, I don't worry about changing it. So sorry, I hope I kind of addressed what you guys were talking about. I got a little bit lost in the comments, but please, ask again, I guess, if I haven't addressed that, what you're after. All right, so readdressing the candle now, I'm going to, of course, chunk out where the flame would be burning. And so we need to depress this area pretty significantly, increase the strength on my inflate brush and just start digging this out. And that's a very, very simple process. So we'll push that way down and then let's grab my snake hook brush. And like we see in the reference, just vary the rim of this a bit.
Cody says, I like brush detail for the ability to switch between big and small details by just changing the brush size.
Oh, yeah. Right. No, that's a great option too. It's still like it's going back to, I guess me kind of old geezer set in my ways, but I feel like I used that and that, like I've ran into some problems. Like sometimes I want a big brush with small, like with a small detail resolution, and then likewise sometimes a small brush with a bigger detail size. So I don't know. I felt like I ran into some problems. I mean, I doubt anything is a perfect solution, but I appreciate you guys sharing what you guys use. It's cool to kind of to see what other artists are using and how it benefits them. It's a reminder, just like, I mean, Blender's a pretty legit tool that covers a lot of bases for people's workflows.
Dennis says yes, it's bad for grabbing the snake hook, and then Ryan says it's like using a big size to down res, and then Cody followed up with, yeah, it's not perfect, but I had those same issues.
Okay, yeah, um, excellent. Again, thanks guys for sharing. Continue to do that as you compare and contrast workflows with what I'm doing. I appreciate that insight. Cool. So yeah, I'm just very kind of trying to randomly vary the edge of this candle. Right now it's very blocky, so I might as well do some smoothing to make that a little more like the artwork. I mean the artwork, the reference photography. All right, cool. So I also want to start out broad. I think I said this well, I know I said this in the pre-recorded stuff. I definitely don't want to get too detailed too quickly. That's just going to mess with me later on down the road. But I want to, in general, keep this very broad. And so included in the broad strokes is I want to create some of these streams of melted wax that kind of linger and crawl over the side of our base. And so this is perfect for the mask option. So I'm just going to kind of pull out a broad section of the rim and invert that. And let's use snake hook, because that will generate new topology, new geometry along the stroke. And so we'll just start to pull that out and then make that creep over the edge. And then let's try to smooth that out, maybe use the inflate brush a little bit. Okay, very cool. Definitely don't want it poking up, and so we want it to look like the wax is sitting on the surface. We don't want it raised up like that. And so that's very simple. We can just do that all the way around for a few spots. Let's Alt M to clear the mask. Maybe smooth out that transition. There's a harsh transition from the mask edge. And let's do this, let's say, with a smaller one. Control I to invert that mask. And yep, what?
Philip says, I actually managed to overlook the masking option in Blender for months now.
Oh man, that must have been like Christmas or if this is the first time you're seeing it, I mean, that must be pretty sweet. It is an excellent, excellent tool to have in our bag. Man, I think that has happened to me so many times with Blender. Part of it's a problem with like it's maybe over dependence on hotkeys. Like tools can go unnoticed because they're only accessible through hotkeys, and you would never have a reason to know what that hotkey was. But like on the positive side, frequently I find like Easter egg tools in there that are like clutch, and I'm like, I've been doing this so wrong for months or even for years sometimes. So yeah, Blender's really cool well, maybe it's a problem, but it's a fun little facet of that problem sometimes. But
yep.
Anyway,
Ryan
welcome to the club.
Useful. And then Mike says, I just used it for the first time this week for this week's homework.
That's awesome. Golly, that's cool. I get a big kick out of any time someone learns something from me, so I appreciate that. I can so relate. Awesome. Let's see. Okay, so just continuing this around the edge. Again, variety is the name of the game. Maybe we'll pull this one down like further. Let's see. Yeah. Ooh. But it's not straight at all. Sort of defying gravity there. That's not good. Looks kind of funky. But you can definitely have fun. At least I consider it fun when you kind of introduce that variety. It's just very much at your pleasure, whatever you want to do with these kind of drips. So sometimes adding variety to your sculpture can be monotonous, but we can try and make some fun out of it if that's what we want to do. So in general, that maybe looks a little bit rough as a drip, but oh well, it's good for now. We can come back to it and perfect it later. So I'll do one more of these. Let's make this one pretty big. and then we'll move on to, we'll just focus on this side, I suppose. Let's see, in about 5 minutes, I suppose we should take a breather, take a bathroom break, but we'll keep going for another 5 minutes. Snake hook. And I really need to figure out something, maybe tell jokes or something while I'm doing all the monotonous, repetitive stuff. I'm sure you guys have figured out that sculpting can be can have its moments of being repetitive. And so as someone who teaches that, it's all, the trick is either take the easy way out and time lapse it, or, try and scrape the bottom of your barrel for, some sort of brilliant insight, I guess, if I think I have that. And so now I'm just sort of talking out of my butt while I sculpt this thing.
We're starting the jokes.
Sorry, I sort of got that started. Two cannibals are eating a clown. Oh, that's good. Oh man. All right, so that's going to be it for the little overhang pieces. And periodically, of course, take a step back, see how the sculpture is coming along, and I think it looks like a candle, at least the beginning form of a candle. So we're on the right track at least. And I'm going to kind of keep it at this level, and then after the break, get down to some of the details and trying to create all this wonderfulness of melted candleness. So I think I'm ready to do that. Are you cool if we take a break now, and I guess 3 minutes early?
Sure.
At this stage, it could also become a volcano. Look at the creativity already showing up in the chat. I freaking love it. I can't wait to see you sculpt the fire. Ooh, Mike might be disappointed, but I could also see that as a challenge and brainstorm how I could do that. So, yeah, maybe challenge accepted. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. Or a tree stump. Love it. Accept the challenge. Oh, wow. No smoke sim allowed? Okay, so pure sculpting, just geometry. Let's take a look at the fire. I'm trying to think of a cool, clever way to go about it. It's going to have to be some sort of stylized look. I don't know if I can garner the respect, but yeah, challenge accepted. I'll do it. All right, so I'm going to go to the bathroom and get a drink myself. We'll be back here at, let's see, in about 10 minutes. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Excellent.
How's everyone doing tonight? Everyone doing good?
All right, I am back.
We have a couple questions while we were on break.
Sweet.
Let me know when you're good to go.
I am ready.
Cody asked a question, says, I have a question for after the break. When sculpting with the intention to retopo afterwards, do you put in any small details? I often do, even though it contributes to nothing to the retopo, but helps with making the character feel more real. Yeah,
absolutely. That does come down to your discretion and your knowledge of the workflow. I usually don't model much detail past what I know I want to incorporate into the retopology. And that can be as much as, like in a facial retopology, it can be modeling in some of the wrinkles, especially because, if I'm going to rig the character for complex facial deformation, I will sculpt the wrinkle detail in before retopology and literally retopologize the wrinkles directly into the mesh, because that's what's going to be needed for that kind of complex deformation upon rigging and animation. And also I'm going to show you, there's kind of I think it's a cool technique in I believe it's week 4, where I sculpted for this character that I sculpted for the workshop. I went a little bit too far with the detail, perhaps. When I retopologized the body mesh specifically, the body mesh smooth looked a lot less detailed and less formed than the sculpted version. And so I show you this little kind of simple trick to get that detail back into your multi-resolution on top of the retopology. So there's a couple, it's not, super strict as far as how much detail to sculpt compared to what you will be retopologizing. You can either just retopologize the detail or use this method to maintain that detail. So hopefully that answered.
Dennis has a question about the sash for the character. He says, I'm still curious about sculpting the sash on the main character. When you say you sculpted it, do you mean you took a flat cube and sculpted the rest, or did you use a cloth sim to create the base and then sculpt the rest of the detail?
Number two, that's exactly what I did. Sculpting cloth from scratch it's something that I have a love-hate relationship with. Sometimes I get it to look really, really nice, and then other times I just feel like I'm never quite there. And so yeah, with this character, I definitely, anytime I can do it, I will try and use the simulation. Granted, it's not extremely good in Blender. It's very finicky, but I don't know if you've whether or not you've seen the keynote presentation from the Blender conference from, oh man, who was it? It was a guy I've never heard of before, but he created a Python add-on for cloth. Yeah, the clocks. Yeah, okay. So Cody's seen it, but I encourage you to watch that one. Maybe I'll send. Who's asking? Daniel. Maybe I'll send you a link when I find that, because that's very encouraging as far as the cloth sim potential for Blender. But anyway, so yeah, cloth sim is not particularly great in Blender, but it can do the job. And so that's what I do for this character is I simulate every piece of cloth, even the pants, which was kind of a pain to figure out, but I was able to do that, and so that creates kind of the macro form of the cloth, and then I go in and sculpt, little details like seam stitch, like stitch wrinkles, and this thing that I call ghost wrinkles. So
it seems like a lot of people are interested in that link.
Oh, perfect.
People are already firing off.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. It's an awesome talk. I'm super excited about what he's come up with. Awesome. Was that the yeah, Richard Colburn? That's the guy. Cool. Are there any other questions, Joe, that I missed during the break?
No, I think those are all the questions. Most of them were just replies to those questions that other people were saying.
All right, then. Cool deal. Well, I was challenged before the break to sculpt fire, which I might just start there. I might take a little break from the wax and then try this fire out. I'm open to suggestions. It is a challenge, but if anyone can guide me, I'm very open to that. Joe, you too. All right, so let's get the little wick in there first.
Dennis says curved strokes.
Curved strokes. Okay. Duly noted. I'll need to visualize in my head how exactly that's gonna. I can see that helping. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Grab my snake hook brush and let's just pull out a wick.
Oh, you gotta unpause it.
Oh gosh.
It's still paused. Oh, hold on. I just had to move it, I think. Or did you unpause it?
I think, did I pause it? I must have paused it. Yeah, I did pause it. Yeah, my fault. Okay, so step back a little bit. So for the wick, just creating a little mask at the base and then using snake hook to pull this little guy out. Okay, let's try. I didn't like how that was pulling out, so let's try with a different curve. That's better. Excellent. All right, so we've got our little wick. Now for the fire, man. That is a tricky one. All right, so I'm going to start with a new piece of geometry. And let's just, this is very ad-libbed. I did not rehearse any of this, so we will see where it goes. I'm going to create a UV sphere, and we'll move that into position, kind of scale it in everything but the Z-axis. Man, my Wacom tablet, the mouse is it's acting real strange and keeps like flickering really bad. I'm not sure what that's about.
What kind do you have?
I have, boy, this thing is old as can be. It's a Bamboo Fun Pen and Touch.
Oh my gosh, you're using a bamboo.
Dude, Bamboo, yeah. I got it as it was my first one, and I just got the cheapest one basically, and like it's going strong still, and I've never really been able to transition to the medium like the Intuos. I used it at like the studios that I was at, but I think I just prefer the kind of compact nature of the Bamboo having such a small screen, but or a small like writing surface, but. Yeah, I mean, it's been with me through high and low. I've developed a relationship with it for
I
sure.
was actually really loving using my Cintiq
Oh
with,
yeah.
it was awesome when I was sculpting with it. I
Oh shoot, really? So I'm
tried
curious what that would be like. Is there not a gap between like the surface of the like the glass and then the pixels? I feel like it would never feel like you're touching it.
well, yeah. I mean, the mouse is still on it's still like the monitor. It's
Okay.
you gotta try it out. I highly recommend uh like try demoing it out somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely need to demo it before I make any conclusions. That's a good point. Very good point. All right, so for the flame, I'm just going to, before I go into sculpt mode, I always make it a habit to apply the transformations because if you don't, especially scale, you can start to get some weird behavior. Now that I've applied them all, let's jump into sculpt mode and enable dynamic topology. And someone suggested curve strokes. Let's see, where is that at? Strokes, curve. I bet that would be really good if I can use it with a snake hook brush. I'm curious. Um, for now, let me try and shape this a little bit more. Let's see with my grab brush. Hotkey wasn't working for some reason. All right, let's see here. I feel like it should sort of be levitating off of the wick because if I cover the wick, it's kind of important part of seeing the wick underneath there. So since I'm dealing with solid geometry, maybe I'll just have it hover. I don't know. This is an interesting little challenge. Who is the first person that challenged me? I need to
Uh,
make a note in my chart about them. Mike,
Mike.
awesome. Okay, cool. So now that I've got this, I'm going to give it a shot with someone suggested the curve
I
strokes.
think Dennis says it's E.
E.
He says
Look
E.
at that, man. Yeah, it's funny when just when I realize how many hotkeys I don't use and other people do. Stroke method. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's perfect. Curve, and then, golly, I admittedly don't have a lot of experience with this, so oh gosh, the teacher is being taught. Um, yeah, okay, that's right. Works just like um,
I
the
know.
paint mode. Okay. All right, let's just give it a test. Wonder if would this really work? This would be wild if it does. What do you enter? Holy cow.
Whoa.
I've never done it like that, but that is awesome. Okay, so whoever suggested it, thank you. You were correct. And I have been taught, schooled. Oh,
Witches.
that's wild. So I like that shape so much. I'm gonna rotate it to be oriented vertically in edit mode. That is just cool. Okay, so I jump into edit mode by using tab, and then we'll just rotate this straight up.
Daniel says so. One A and one F on the first live stream.
1A and 1.
So Mike gets an F and challenged you, and then Dennis gets an A.
That's awesome. Oh, that's great. We're gonna have fun this 6 weeks, I can tell. All right, let's see. Man, that was money. The curved stroke was definitely money. And why in the world is my grab brush hotkeys not working? Bizarre. Okay. Just smooth that out to be very sharp. Let's see. I think I want to, should these, I don't know, is that enough? I feel like maybe it's too volumetric, like it's too round, perhaps. It needs like some sharp edges, perhaps.
I think the picture is kind of misleading because uh it's the side of it.
That, yeah, that's true. It's like fire's such a weird thing.
Hold on, let me Google a picture.
Man. All right, so let's get a general consensus as to where it's at now. Um, F being it doesn't read like fire at all, and A being like this is the perfect interpretation of fire. That's pretty money.
Um, Actually, on some of these, it depends on.
Can you pan back? Oh yeah, good call.
Some of them look like sword blades. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, B plus. All right.
I never thought of flames as looking like sword blades. They're like kind of.
Yeah, that's a good point. It in the image, yeah, it probably should be a little bit rounded. More volume on the side. So you're saying like thickness this way? Okay. Yeah, okay, I agree with you. I think I was duped into the side image of the candle. It's almost like in games, when you put a flat plane that always faces the camera, and so it's like maybe fire is sort of like that in reality, or at least the illusion of it. All right, so I'm gonna puff that out. Man, I must have turned off my cursor. Is that what I did? Overlay, appearance, show brush. I don't know why I can't see my brush anymore.
I wouldn't, unless you're going for like maybe like a stylized flame. I don't think the top of it is actually that sharp.
Yeah, you're right. And yes, who said it? I think Ryan suggested that recently too. Why in the world can I not see? Does anyone know why I can't see my render only? No, that's not on. Where is it? I feel like this has happened before. Show brush, overlay. Weird.
Uh, Kai says it's because the curve is still selected.
Ah, thank you. Golly, it's nice having an audience because they can help me solve my problems much quicker. Brilliant. All right, this turned extremely interactive, this whole portion of the live stream, which is fun. So get some more volume over here. I concur with that, and then smooth the top.
Dennis says no pause and then record here.
No pause. Wait, I don't get it.
I'm guessing he means like we it'd be like one of those things where we pause it and all of a sudden it just like appears and it's like done.
That's awesome. Yeah. Right. Yeah, he sees the raw, like unrehearsed workflow, and it's a lot less impressive, maybe. Let's see here. Watch me spend the entire hour. I've already spent, oh my goodness, I've spent 20 minutes on it. Look at this. This thing's busted. I may have been defeated by the challenge. I mean, now it's just kind of looking like a witch's hat.
I need to light a candle. I need to actually look at a real one
Yeah, don't trust the internet.
because they're all flat pictures, so I don't get to see it in 3 dimensions, you know?
Oh man, totally. Let's see. How about I lock the X and Z, X and Y, and just smooth down. There we go. Yeah. Does anyone think that looks like fire? They are. Let's see here. So wait, do I still fail? No, I think you get a passing grade for me failing. They are quite they are quite flat. Yeah. I'm confused. I'm confused what it should be, if it should be flat or if it should be thick.
I'm looking at sculptures online, and it looks like a lot of people make it really round.
Oh, so people do sculpt it. I've never even looked up sculpted fire.
Well, it's just like, a lot of it's stylized.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably what I would err. If I were to do this again or go back and readdress this, I would probably make it very stylized. A realistic flame just kind of looks funny. Constrained to camera and done. Legit, that is a good call. All right, so in the sculpting process, I am not particularly happy with the flame. And so I would stop doing that, which I am going to stop doing that for now. And let's go back to the wax. And then maybe after just sort of being in the presence of this sculpted flame, my mind can start to come up with ideas as far as what, to make it better.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so would you be able to shrink the actual flame down, and then add like light to it to make it like you'd be able
Glow.
to throw on a matte cap or a texture or something like on there, so that way it's kind of somewhat translucent, and then
Yeah.
you'd be able to throw light on there, and then it would glow from there.
Absolutely, we can do that. So you're saying you would shrink it down maybe like that?
Yeah, I would also pull down the left side.
Let's see, this side?
Yeah, pull that because it covers like the wick is usually on fire.
Yeah, okay, so you're thinking I should pull it all the way down over the wick.
Slightly. It's weird because fire like rests above it, like you have it, but one side is always, I think, deeper than the other.
That's true. Yeah, like the main glowing part of the fire is definitely seems to be above the wick, but then the blue, like I guess the hottest part of the flame is kind of transparent. That's a tough call. Yeah. Let's see. I, hmm, that is tough. All right, let's leave it like that, and then let's see if we can get that like temporary material going. Let's see, using Blender Render. I know I can do it here quite easily. Man, look at this. This is way off topic, but I hope you guys don't mind how weird off the rails this has kind of gone. I wonder if I can do even a ramp. Let's see, shadeless. No, that's not. There we go. Emit up to like 10. Bright white. And let's see. Man, it's been a while since I used Blender Internal. Maybe the ramp is not respected. Oh, I know why. So that when the emit value goes too high, I think it doesn't show. No,
Ryan says it's a relic now.
it is, right? I still like to go revisit it sometimes, maybe like, most people probably like to go to their 10-year reunion in high school just to see everybody, but change the flag color. I thought that's what I was. Let's see. Ramp, emit, shadeless. Why is that not showing? It's very much a relic. Oh, there we go. I'm at least getting a general color. I'm spending too much time. I feel like it's a lost cause to some degree. Yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna surrender to the flame and then spend some time on the wax. Man, somebody, you stumped me with the flame. You stumped me. Well done. That reads like fire. What a positive attitude we have there.
Mike really doesn't want to fail. It reads like fire.
Oh, that's great. Oh gosh, vertex paint. All right, sculpt mode. Let's readdress some details in the wax, some of this drippy goodness. So I'm going to continue using the mask method. That's the most amazing fire God has ever seen. Thank you for that. It's quite a compliment. All right, we'll jump back to the, let's see, mask brush. I'm just going to make some streaks here down the surface, pretty thin. We'll do a test of the workflow and then start, kind of refine it as we go. Invert the mask. So from here, I can inflate, and the inflation of the mesh should grow like over the edge of my mask. Let me show you what I mean. Let's see, increase the strength. And so concentrate the majority of my, oh wait, do I not have, yikes, no, enabled, I don't have dynamic topology enabled, there we go. So now when I start to concentrate my brush strength towards the bottom, we get that drip, and it's also like protruding over, bulging out over the mask. So that's given us a pretty good drip without, I guess, isolated drip. So if we clear that, I mean, that's actually not too bad. Yeah, maybe smooth some of that out. Because the hard part would be, really sculpting that crevice. Because we want the silhouette realistically to be like this. Oh, well, disappeared. Yikes, there it is over there. Let's get rid of that. So yeah, I think that method's going to work really, really well. And maybe I can, start to kind of group them together. Let's make a couple. That's probably too big. I do want to keep these streaks, the mask streaks, pretty thin, because the thicker that I make them, the thicker the drop has to be to eclipse the edge. Yeah, I think that should work pretty well. Back to the inflate brush. Awesome. Man, the mask tool is pretty clutch for this particular type of sculpture.
That's what they're saying.
What are you laughing
about? That's what they're saying in chat.
Oh, I wasn't even looking.
Yeah, Philip's saying, I really should have found the mask brush, and then Mike says, all masks all the time, and Cody says, I don't use masking nearly enough.
Excellent. Oh gosh, I'm glad it's relevant. That's probably my biggest fear about doing anything in front of a group, is like, I think I was asked at one point to speak or Wes was trying to get me to speak at the Blender conference, and I haven't been able to bring myself to do it yet, because like, what if I pick a topic that's like not relevant to people? It's terrifying for me to be like on stage going through this detailed explanation about something that no one in the audience actually cares about. And so anytime, like I feel like what I'm saying is relevant, it's just a breath of, relief. Like, thank goodness. Thank you guys for that. So yeah, at this point, we're at a very repetitive stage of slowly building up, especially with this kind of detail. This could end up taking a while, but I think we're all in agreement that the mask brush is awesome for this. And so I'm just going to keep on doing that. I think it's clear I'm not going to be able to make it to the other sides of the candle, but maybe I'll start to just focus in on this section now and recreate some of this glorious blobbing. And so we have a brush for that, one that I rarely use, but let's see how well it comes in handy here. Well, let's test. I mean, that doesn't look particularly good, but I'll leave it, and then let's see what the difference, if there is a difference in behavior between that and the inflate. Okay, yeah, there is. So a little bit, I guess. The blob seems to maintain its edge a little bit better. So let's see. Let's try and use the blob brush. Oops. To create this like collection of small drops. Yeah, so this kind of works almost not needing the mask almost, but I wonder how well it'll continue to work as we get closer, like drops get closer together. Man, I love sculpting. When I first started CG, digital sculpting wasn't really a thing, and like, imagine polygon modeling this. That would just be awful. Unless one of you guys are more into polygon modeling, then you're probably thinking this guy just doesn't know how to do it.
It
Yeah, I
just
think that
brings
looks
me back
pretty.
to,
Do what?
to the, it just brings me back to like Nintendo 64 graphics, where all they had was just like two planes. It was like an X, and then they just had another plane above it, and it was just like a light source.
Ah, the good old days, for sure. Speaking of that, a weird thing that I've been into, like really into lately, I mentioned it in my little introductory post, was like like modding old systems into one that I watched is taking a Dreamcast and putting it into a like custom designed portable where this guy like takes it apart, lays it out on paper and like either 3D prints or CNC machines out a new like chassis and frame for it, and it's just like absolutely brilliant to me. You know that what an application to this to his skills, I guess. And he has a YouTube channel, so he's probably making hopefully making some good money because it's super interesting. But like how I don't know, that's just super cool, and it's taken me back to all the like N64s, and I've been browsing eBay for like Game Boy Pockets to see if I can like test some of my you know hobby modding skills, which are non-existent at this point. But anyway, that's one of the topics I'm trying to use to fill repetitive space. Hmm, wax drips. Golly, this is going to take forever. Let's see if I can slowly make my way down to improve upon this little drip. Maybe I should start a little bit bigger. I'm probably falling under the trap of like starting too small, too granular, too quickly. But then again, that does kind of look like the sculpture over here, or the photo over here. I might try some bigger ones, bigger drips. Am I missing any questions? Ignoring anybody?
No, no. Mike asked, "What else are you gonna do with the Dreamcast?" Then we started talking about Dreamcast games.
You mean you didn't love that system?
I didn't own a Dreamcast.
Oh, oh.
I owned a 64.
Oh, wait, are they comparable? I feel like the Dreamcast was, I mean, I'm not a big gamer, but so like take anything I say about games with a grain of salt. But um, I feel like the Dreamcast was just the wrong place at the wrong time. Like in
Oh
between
yeah.
N64, which it was clearly, I think, better graphically, and then it was just before the PS2, which it was inferior to graphically. So I don't know. I feel like it got screwed over, but
No, yeah, no, it's that generation is like PS1, Dreamcast, and Nintendo 64 were all looped in
neck
together.
and neck for sure. Yeah, that's a huge drip. And it's kind of fun. It is repetitive, but sort of reminds me of like laying out UVs. There's not much thought going into it, so it's almost therapeutic in a way. Same thing with like when I did rotoscoping at my first job. Like most people hate it, and I probably wouldn't like to do it every day, but you could just get in the zone and like listen to music and just hammer the stuff out. I think that was a good drip. I like that one. What do you guys think? Scale of one to did I say 1 to 10? I forget if I use scale or if I use A, B, C, or D or F. How's this looking compared to the reference? Is it convincing so far, or you have any suggestions for how I can better match it?
They're saying it looks great.
Well, that is extremely generous of them. Do you guys want me to keep going? I'm not sure if there's any other kind of details I need to address. It's probably going to just be this over and over again. So I'm happy to do that for another 20 minutes, or if you guys have seen all you want or have other questions or something, then, I guess I'm leaving that up to you guys.
Uh, Philip says the wax in the reference seems to be a little smoother and the blobs are more connected there. I'd also say that some of the blobs on there are like on the string. You know how like the blob kind of like slops down?
Yeah,
It blobs on the way down.
blobs. Oh, okay. So you're saying like the strand of the drip is a little too uniform, like straight?
Yeah, so like if you look on the reference picture that you have on the left side, you'll see that it kind of ripples down.
Oh, I'm with you totally. Like right here, it's anything but
Yeah.
straight. That's a good call.
Hmm.
I
Uh,
completely agree.
Debron says refine your creases.
That's another
Mike
good call.
Mike says this might be a material thing. A little subsurface scarring will go a long way. Uh,
Agreed.
Aaron Wheeler asks, can you address creasing? I'm having trouble adding creases without distorting my existing detail.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Let's focus on let's focus on some creasing. Um, but you think that's helping a little bit with the blobs, like readdressing on the way down?
Yeah, because that's how wax kind of falls, you know?
Right,
It
varying
doesn't. It's not
temperatures.
like it's not like syrup,
Yeah, you're
you know?
right.
It's like yeah, like you said, like the temperature, so like it'll fall down and then it'll form and then it'll fall again.
I wonder if I can like fast track some of this by using a texture. Let's see here. I haven't forgot about the creasing. I'm gonna get to that. I just want to try this real quick. Or is it texture? New texture. Call this noise. And let's make it where is it? Clouds. All right, so let's see if I can use the drag. No, that's right. Drag dot. No, I'm sorry, anchored. All right, let's see if we can't get some of that noise for free rather than going into each strand. Okay, I think that kind of worked. Did you even notice what just happened? Was
Yeah.
that even noticeable? Kind of globally noisifying this. What do you think, Joe?
I think it looks great. Everyone else is saying that it looks great and it worked really well.
Another awesome tool in the Blender tool bag. Okay, creasing. Let's talk about that one. So you said Aaron was the one asking about that?
Yes.
Okay.
This is when I inflate my creases, for instance.
Okay. So do I understand that like when you add creases, I wonder if you're using, let's see, where is it? Dynamic topology. I wonder if you're using subdivide collapse, which would kind of overrule the existing geometry based on your detail size. And so an example of this is I'm using the crease brush now, and it's pinching together, but it's kind of perpetually regenerating itself. Is that kind of the problem that oh, wait a minute. I think I have the wrong. Yeah, I want it on add by default. So is that kind of what I'm understanding, Aaron?
He says,
No,
no, I don't use that.
no. Okay. Um, was I anywhere close? Was it something about like you have trouble adding creases and maintaining the existing detail? Trying to find it in the chat. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. let's see. I'll stop trying to. I use subdivide. Okay, yeah, that's what I would have suggested. Subdivide edges. That's definitely what I like to do. Okay, so I'll just start to work on a crease and refine it a little bit better. Definitely subdivide edges if I want to maintain the detail, which you already seem to know. And then, if I start to push that deeper into the surface, the cool thing about the crease brush is it not only pushes in, but it also pulls together. And this can be extremely useful, but it can also leave a little bit of like a floor to the crease. And so often what I'll do is come back with the inflate brush after I've made my crease. Actually, I do this all the time, and then better influence it by, I better pull it together by using the inflate brush right over top of that crease. And so it pulls those surfaces together to where we don't have that floor anymore. And it's a super tight crease. Is that helpful? Does that kind of maybe shed some light on adding creases? I tend to lose detail.
When I do this, I tend to lose detail. Is this just a feel thing, or do I build up, or do I need to build up over time?
I'm not sure there's too much else to it. I wonder if we can't the size has to be right on the inflate, otherwise you get ridges on the side. Yeah, I think that's true. I'd usually use a kind of a subtle inflate strength, but let's see. Maybe I'll just add reinforce this crease here. Maybe that'll help out somehow. So I always start with the crease brush. I cut in first.
Yeah, Aaron says because then it gets. I get inflated seams almost.
Because then I get inflated. Shoot.
So his seams get inflated.
Seams get inflated. Oh, okay. Maybe he's. Are you talking about like this area right here? Oh man, where's my grease pencil? There it is. Like this area down here gets inflated as well, and kind of builds up like a ridge that you don't want. Yes.
Yes.
Exclamation. That must be it. That's a good question. So let's see. If you're having that problem, I guess it happened a little bit over here. You can see, and so I just go back and like smooth that out, just holding Shift. But if we want to be really specific with it, oh wait, I missed something. Man, the chat window is like super tiny. If I scroll at all, it like jumps up 10 messages. Let's see, sorry, I'm trying to figure out what Aaron just said.
Oh, he says, yeah, then I smooth it out and end up smoothing my crease.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, Mike is on it. I was going to suggest the mask tool. So after I've cut this crease in there, the only thing that's missing is the surfaces being drawn together. So let's just grab the mask brush, and mask right underneath that. And this will prevent, man, it seems like mask maybe is the magic word of the evening, maybe of the week. But so once I've masked this area so it will not be affected and therefore it can't develop that ridge, let's use the inflate brush now. Zoom out a little bit. My detail strength or detail size is probably a little too small for being this close. Oh, I'm using subdivide edges too. Let's do subdivide collapse. There we go. That's what I want. So now we're getting just the drip part of the crease overlapping. Hopefully that's a little bit helpful.
Philip says, I always use the pinch to narrow the creases, but this seems to give a much smoother result.
Oh, nice.
Aaron says, I go back and forth. He hasn't responded to your question yet, though.
Okay. Did you see the mask portion that I just tried to demonstrate? Hopefully, honestly, that seems like a lot of work, especially on a sculpture like this where there's so many creases. That's where hopefully the mask part that I showed at the beginning to create all the drips you will take care of that. But
Aaron says, what about in between drips?
in between drips. So like, maybe some. Oh, well, if it's in between drips, then you don't maybe have to worry about the ridge because that's appropriate. So let's see. Let's go back to detail size of 5. And so same technique, let's cut in between. And then if I inflate, I'll make my inflate brush pretty big and inflate those together. It shouldn't make a noticeable ridge on both of them, but just kind of plump both of them up, I guess. So especially in that situation, hopefully it's not that much of an issue like it was down here. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. Like Aaron, if you want, my faces would then stretch though. If you don't have dynamic topology enabled, then I can imagine that happening. He does, huh? Sounds funky. So you're saying basically that, like, in your experience, it doesn't behave exactly the same way that you saw here? No, don't apologize at all. Okay, funky. Maybe maybe we might need to do like maybe kind of like a one-on-one thing. See if we can troubleshoot like a particular setting that you have enabled, or I don't know. It's always kind of, you got to start from square one when behavior doesn't seem to match between two people. Okay, cool. Yeah, well, is this a detail size issue? That's a valid question too. Let's change this to like 15 or something and try that same thing. Although, let's try on a different one. Let's say in between these two. So if my detail size, subdivide edges, is bigger, like Mike suggested, then let me try cutting that in, inflating. Is that, oh, maybe this is what Aaron's talking about. Is that the kind of stretching you're experiencing? Yes, we're getting there. Okay, so this is definitely a subdivide edges problem. Whenever you see this kind of crumpling on the, yeah, it definitely looks bad. And then even when you try and smooth it, like it's actually, that kind of looks cool in this context. But yeah, I totally know what you mean. And that's absolutely a subdivide edges problem. Thanks, Mike, for figuring that out. And so when you see that, that's when I jump back to subdivide collapse, because then you won't get it. It happens a lot with the inflate brush, subdivide edges, and we start inflating. It tries to maintain the underlying geometry, so we get some funkiness happening, and that's when the solution, in my opinion, is subdivide collapse. It won't do that.
Aaron asks, so switch back after the crease.
Let's see. Well, you might be able to. I mean, anytime you go back to subdivide collapse, you're going to lose that detail. But if you keep your detail size small enough, like 5, for example, the new geometry that's generated shouldn't affect the overall detail of the sculpture. So that's what I recommend. If you start to see that crumpling, go to subdivide collapse and decrease your detail size so it's a little bit finer of mesh tessellation. So cool. Yeah, if you continue to have problems, okay, good, because I lose detail and it looks like a mess. Yeah, try that, and if it continues to be a problem, you and I can get together and do like a one-to-one deal.
It's a 5-minute warning.
Well, now I'm freaking out, so thanks. Cool. I mean, yeah. Does anyone else have any? We crushed that ish. Legit. I'm gonna sleep awesome tonight because we overcame the text-based problems of communication and we figured it out. Does anyone have any other questions that I can address in the last 5 minutes, or any concerns you have for the rest of the week, or questions in general? I am here to answer.
Can you sculpt smoke?
Hey, I'm not falling for that one. Not twice. Oh, that's great. Man, you guys are fun. I really appreciate you. I was quite nervous for weeks leading up to the live stream. I just psyched myself out, but you guys have been awesome, make me feel comfortable, and hopefully, well, at least I get the impression that maybe it's relevant what I'm talking about. So that's awesome for me. I'm really looking forward to continuing the weekly live streams. It's going to be a good time, I think. Let's see. When you use that noise texture to add jitter, what brush did you use for that again? I typically use a regular sculpt, the sculpt slash draw brush, and frequently, I think I've done it in some recorded training where I will make a dedicated brush for this by duplicating the sculpt draw and just calling this stamp. And a stamp will or a texture will work on any brush, but I don't know. It's just kind of like the baseline behavior to use the sculpt draw brush. So that's what I use. That's what I recommend. I'm sure there are times where I use a specific brush, but it's not often. Yeah, not often. It adds without. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, and I didn't really test that whole technique with dynamic topology. Generally, stamps I find can slow down significantly with dynamic topology. In my memory, I seem to remember it not even working at times, but it worked there pretty well. I wonder if it struggles with like image textures more so than with procedural like Blender generated ones. But is there any type of object we shouldn't sculpt for our week 1 homework?
Fire.
Fire. Well, I mean, if you're up for the challenge, go for it. I'd actually be curious to see different versions of fire. I don't want that to be. I mean, maybe that would still serve the purpose of this week of just getting comfortable with sculpting. So really, all bets are off as far as like what you should or should not sculpt. Just if the fire is a good challenge for you to understand the tools and explore the tools, then I'm absolutely welcome to you doing that. But I mean, I might say like don't sculpt a character. I mean, because you're going to be doing that the rest of the 6 weeks. But I mean, you can if you just like can't get enough of sculpting characters and you will spend hours every day doing it. Maybe that's good for this week. But anyway, no, I don't really suggest anything to not be sculpted. Smoke, maybe. I'll add that to the list of no's. Mike, he's gonna be trouble. Cool. Well, if that's it for the questions, then I might be inclined to go ahead and come to a close. Did my internet connection cut out? I feel alone.
No.
Good. Okay, cool.
Bueller?
Yeah, really. Awesome. That's extremely encouraging to hear. Thank you for that, Daniel. Awesome sauce. Oh man, Dan, I appreciate you willing to to be up at 1 a.m. doing this with us. It's really cool having an international group, but I know it's inevitable. Some people are going to be screwed by the live stream time. Oh, Philip, you're a trooper. Two gold stars for you guys. Flame sculpting. Simply don't. Oh gosh, 3 a.m. Man, hats off to you. Thanks so much for being here at that ridiculous hour. Really appreciate it. So yeah, I'll let you guys get to bed then and come to a close. I'm really looking forward to the next live stream, guys. Thanks. You've made it a real pleasure. And yeah, I think that's it. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a cool slogan to end with. Mike, man, he's a troll.
Okay, so.
Oh, I love it. What? Awesome. All right, guys, I'm going to close it down, and then this will be up by tomorrow. We've recorded it, so I'll export it and get that uploaded to the live stream page by tomorrow. And yeah, I'm always available. Email me for questions or anything, and we'll just continue on. It's It's more hipster to have no closer. All right, then. I'm like seconds away from just closing it out.
Bye-bye!
Seriously, that's what I'm gonna do.